Hello and welcome to the second installment in our Informed Perspectives webinar series, How to Assess Business Viability in Today's Complex Economy. My name is Lee Simmons and I am your moderator. And today's presentation is brought to you with our partner and presenter, Robin Davies. Robin is leader of Global Data, Insights, and Analytics at D&B, where she works to harness big data to create big insights. Robin leads cross-functional efforts for discovery, curation, and synthesis of new data sources and processes. Today's webinar examines what you need to know to make the most informed decisions about the current and future health of the business. For those in the audience who have questions for Robin, just enter it into the Q&A panel at any time. And now for today's webcast, Robin.
Thanks, Lee, and good afternoon and good morning to everybody. With you today. Let me tell you a little bit about what we'll do today. I'll start with some context, explaining the complex environment that we see. Talk about why we think it matters to assess the health or viability of a business, how we use our analytics to predict viability, and then I'll walk you through some use cases to show different ways you can use D&B's new viability rating. And at the end, we'll have time for questions and answers. As Lee said, during the course of the presentation, if you have questions, just go into the Q&A panel and enter the questions. So we live and work in a world that's increasingly complex, and there's no shortage of data in that world. In fact, we've got data coming at us from all sides. You have access to third-party data from companies like D&B. You have access to transactional data, and more of it than ever because of the mobile devices we all carry around. There are new sources of data that are coming at us, data from social media and new social media sites popping up all the time. So we have lots of data coming at us from all sides. But what we need isn't really more data. What we need is more insight. We need ways to take all that data and make sense of it. There's another complexity that we're facing, which is the complexity with the customers, suppliers, and prospects that we all look at. So this complex environment has gotten more complicated with the growing importance of small businesses in our economy. So Small Business Administration now says that over half of U.S. sales are generated by small businesses. Those small businesses aren't like big manufacturing, well-established companies. They behave differently. They open and close more frequently. And opening and closing more frequently means you've got more opportunity and more risk associated with those small businesses. You need new tools for the new challenges those small businesses represent, because they also represent opportunities for you. So D&B is committed to helping you deal with all this complexity and deal with the new challenges by the new kinds of businesses you're dealing with. We're making investments to improve our predictive insights so we can take you from basic information about a business where you can say, I see the business or I see you, to more complete information, decision support information where you know the business, to robust predictive data that we can use to make predictions so that you can take action to predict future behavior. The more steps and more information you have, the better decision you can make. So given the complexity in the world, given the challenges that you face, you need a more sophisticated solution, to help you address those challenges and make more complicated decisions. You need a multi-dimensional view of a customer or a prospect to make an informed decision. You need to know not only maybe how viable they are, but you also need to know what kind of company am I dealing with? How much do I know about that company? And you want that information all in one place. You don't want to have to go looking all over for it. So the solution that we're proposing is a multi-dimensional solution. That multi-dimensional view is the new D&B viability rating. Giving you, manage these complexities, we're giving you more than one dimension all in one place. So first, we've expanded the scale of what we're looking at. So traditionally, we've looked at one dimension at a time. Is the business likely to fail? Is the business likely to pay its business bills on time? We've expanded that scale to say, let's look at beyond failure, how healthy or how viable is a business? Then we look in the same rating at depth. How much do we know about a business? Do we have financial? Do we have payment information? Or do we have just that basic identity information that says, I know you, but I don't have depth of information about you? And then we give you context for making that decision. What kind of a business am I looking at? You don't have to look in 20 different places to assess it. We'll give you a simple way to assess the kind of business. How big, how small, how old, how new. How do we do it? This multidimensional rating has two parts to it, both a predictive component and a descriptive component. So we like to think of this as sort of the Swiss Army knife of ratings or scores, if you will. So it's got different components to it, just like the different tools in a Swiss Army knife. You can use them in different combinations. We've put them all in one place, so you don't have to go searching to find all the different components. And we think, and the customers we've had a chance to share this with, you'll find, just like you would for a Swiss Army knife, you'll find uses for it that we probably never thought of in the first place. It will be a very versatile tool in your toolkit. You'll find lots of different ways to use. Let me take this multidimensional, many-component thing and break it down and show you a little bit about how each one of the components of it work, and then how they work together. So first, let's look at the predictive component of the viability rating. So the predictive component has two parts to it, the viability score and the portfolio comparison. Let's start with the viability score. The viability score, in this case, assesses, it takes that expanded view of a potentially bad outcome. So traditionally, we've looked at things like bankruptcies, we've looked at failures, going out of business without paying your bills. Now we've expanded the scope to look at not just those bankruptcies and not just those failing or going out of business without paying your bills, but businesses that are becoming inactive. And we've done this to help you address the challenges that are presented by small businesses. So traditional large established corporations, when they go out of business, they go out of business with a bang. They may fail, they may bankruptcy, there may be stories all over the newspapers. Smaller businesses tend to start slowly, build up an activity, become very active, and then they may just quietly become inactive and fade away. A sole proprietor doesn't have to file bankruptcy, doesn't have to close its doors, they just simply cease to exist. So we've taken that expanded view so you can really understand what's going on with big businesses as well as small businesses. And Andy's in a unique position to do that. We have years of history watching small businesses grow up, become active, and then fade away. So we've got the perspective to help you understand the activities of those businesses, small and large. So that's the concept that we're going after in viability. The viability score shows you how a company would look compared to all U.S. businesses on a scale of 1 to 9. 1 is good, 9 is awful or bad. And then we've gone a bit further with that. That's what we've traditionally done, compared businesses to all of the businesses in the U.S. Now we've added a dimension that we call the portfolio comparison. This helps you understand how a business looks in comparison to its peers, other businesses that we know about the same, where we know about the same amount. So it gives you another level, another way to distinguish one business from another. So how will this work? As I said, that concept of out of business or not active is the expansive concept that includes bankruptcy, failure, and inactivity. So if we look at an example here for a business, its viability score is a 5. So that's right in the middle. And that says on a scale of 1 to 9, I'm in the middle, and its out of business or inactive rate is 7%, compared to the average against all U.S. businesses of 14%. You can see we just fall in the middle. But then, when we compare it in the portfolio comparison, the way that we feel about it changes, and it actually looks a little worse. So now we're comparing it with other businesses in the established trade payment segment. So we're comparing it with other businesses where there's a similar amount of information, we have deep payment information. Now when we look at it in that segment or that portfolio, it looks a little bit riskier, a little bit less viable, if you will. And you can see how using these two predictive scores together gives you more insight than either one would by itself. So I talked about the predictive components of the viability rating. Now let's talk about the descriptive part. So we've got two pieces to the descriptive. One is the data depth, and one is the company profile. Data depth tells you how much does D&B know about this business. And I'm sure that some of you who are attending the webinar today, at one time or another, have given D&B feedback that says, gee, D&B, we really wish you had deeper data on these businesses. We wish you knew more. We want to be able to make decisions. We want to know how much information you have. We want to be able to make decisions on deep insight. So we've decided to make that easy for you to know how well we're doing. And actually put a data depth indicator on each business. Tell you, A is good, G is bad, how much do we know about the business? So you can see one simple letter, how much does D&B know and how much information do I have to make my decision. The next piece of this is the company profile. It will show you the size of the business, the age of the business, and how much we know about it. Very, very simple, easy to understand using letters, so you get a very quick snapshot of who is this business. Give me some context for the decision. So let's look at each one of these a little further to give you some examples of how that works. Let's start with the data depth indicator. So as I said, the data depth indicator is a report card-like indicator, where A is it's a report card-like scale, so A through, in this case, G. So you can actually do worse than school than an F on this one. You can get a G. A is the best. Only companies that have shared financial information, where we have deep trades, and we have firmographic and identity data, so we know how big they are, we know where they are and who they are. Those are the only companies that will get an A. You've got to share financial data to get an A. We've also called out some what we think of as special categories. So we know this information about our business. We think it trumps more or less the other data that we would have. And some of those special categories are listed here. So they include things like out of business, unable to confer business activity unless inactive, bankruptcy, and different categories of high risk or severe risk businesses. All of this information is information that we have today, but it's spread throughout the report. Now we're going to pull it all together in one place. And again, like this was Army Knife, you don't have to go searching for it. We're going to make it very easy for you to understand. When we think of business, this is severe risk business. When we think of business, when we know a business is in bankruptcy, or we know a business has misrepresented information about itself. And last but not least, the company profile dimension. As I said, the company profile dimension will tell you very quickly how big is the business based on employees and sales, how old is the business, how well established is the business based on its control date or start date. And then all of those are grouped by the model segment. So if we go back to that portfolio comparison, it will tell you which portfolio this business is in that we use to compare it to its peers. Again, A is the best. Those are the largest, most established data businesses with the most complete data. And X are the small, startup, micro-business, whereas you would expect we might not have its complete data. And here, too, we have a couple of special categories. So we've made it easy for you to see whether a business is a branch or subsidiary with the Y and the Z connotation. So we do that today to some degree in our ratings, and we preserve that because we know a lot of you are interested in knowing, does this business have corporate hierarchy relationships? So I just walked you through the components of this new viability rating. And that's a lot, it's a lot to take in all at once. I think it will be helpful. I'll walk you through some potential use cases for it to really illustrate how you might use it in decision making. Before I do that, I want to tell you that when we share this with some of our customers, maybe even some of you on the phone, we're always amazed at some of the use cases they play back to us. They're like, okay, that's great, but what about this or what about that? So I'll invite you, in addition to your questions, if anybody can see any interesting use cases or has any ideas, please share them with us. As I said earlier, I really am excited to be sharing this with you, and we're always excited when customers find new uses for these analytics. So please, by all means, either send us an email, we'll tell you how to contact us again, or send in a question. We're very interested in hearing your ideas and your use cases for these ratings. So the first use case, we'll start with one I think that I hope is fairly simple. This is a case where you've got two companies to evaluate. You've got the ABC company and the XYZ company. And you're going to use the viability rating to see what's similar about those two companies and what's different and how you might make different decisions about them. So we start out, and we always kind of start at the left and work our way from left to right. So we start out on the left with their viability score. And here's where you see the similarities. These are two companies that are both scoring the same way, 3. What that tells you is, on a scale of 1 to 9, they're 3. They're relatively low risk when compared to all U.S. businesses. Okay, 3, pretty good, pretty low risk. Now we go over to the portfolio comparison. And now we're going to score each business based on other companies that are in the same portfolio where we know about the same amount of information. Now you're starting to see some differences between these two businesses. So the ABC company scores a 4. Okay, it's a little less risky when you look at it. It's a little more risky, rather, when you look at it compared to its peers, but not significantly. Now we drop down to XYZ. XYZ has gone from a 3 to a 7 when compared to its peers. So all of a sudden, that looks a little more risky, and at 7 is on the higher end of the scale. You might make a different decision. Now move one step over into the descriptive piece, and let's see what the portfolio might look like. So ABC company, it's an A. That's the A is the best. Remember, that's the company where we have the deepest information. So we're making that, we're assessing that score based on having financial information for that business, based on having deep payment information, identity, firmographic. We know a lot about this business, and we think it's a 4. XYZ, and here's another difference. Yes, we have some trade information, but we don't know quite as much about the business, and it looks riskier to us. So suddenly now you have businesses that look alike when we were starting. Now they're starting to look more and more different. And then the last dimension, the company profile, these are clearly two different businesses. They're both established, but ABC company is a large established business. XYZ is a small established business. Now, there's a couple things you can do when you have all this information. So first of all, you say, wow, it's a pretty complete picture of a business in just 4 characters of a viability rating. So a couple things you might do. You might say, okay, I know a lot about 3. It still looks pretty safe to me. I'm ready to go. I'll go ahead and extend credit. You might also take a look at XYZ and think, oh, it's a 7, I don't know as much. But I know we have payment information. So when a company like XYZ, you might decide, well, maybe I'll extend credit if they've got a good commercial credit score, if they've got a good delinquency score, because I know that I'm likely to get paid. So again, it just gives you different options and different ways to assess these two companies. Use case number 2. This one I like to think of as but does it really work use case. So we developed this score last year, and we have an example here. This is a real company that's coming out of our portfolio that we looked at while we were developing the score. So as you can see, in June of 2012, this company had a viability score of a 3. However, when you looked at it in its portfolio, now it went down to an 8. Remember, this is a 1 to 9 scale, so this is only one click above the very bottom of the barrel. And it had a data depth indicator of an A. We knew a lot about this company, so compared to all other companies where we know a lot about, this one doesn't look as good. Fast forward to September of 2012, and it's getting worse. Now it has a 4 across the whole portfolio, and it's going down to a 9, the lowest possible score. Now to give you some context for that, 65% of the 9, the companies of the 9, will be inactive or not viable within the next 12 months. So, and those companies make up only about 1% of our file. So this one really doesn't look good. And again, these are in both cases, the amount of information we know in the company profile isn't going to change. Company profile isn't likely to change over time. So we see this, we see bad in June, worse in September. In January 28th, it filed bankruptcy. Now, see the note over here? This company had a payout score of 70 throughout this whole thing. So it had been paying its bills about the same way, at least through September. We had no traditional DB rating on it because of the negative net worth. So we weren't seeing a lot that way. Now, the delinquency, the commercial credit score had gotten worse, but it had only gone down to a 3. So because we're looking more narrowly in those one-dimensional things, and we're looking more broadly in this viability rating, we're seeing things that we couldn't see before, and we're showing you things you couldn't see before. The last use case is one that's more of a portfolio use case, if you will. So think about working with a portfolio of distributors, agents, and networks. So you sell your goods and services, not necessarily directly, but through a portfolio of distributors. What if you could understand how those distributors, how those agents looked? What if you knew, for example, the company profile? Are they old? Are they new? Are they small? Are they big? And then what if you could see how viable those companies were, both across all the U.S. businesses and then in their segments? First of all, you might see a couple of things. First of all, you'd know a little bit about the health of your distribution channel. You just look at them in aggregate. But you might also see, if you saw companies that were very viable, you might see opportunities for growth. So the more viable a company is, that means that the healthy business is likely to be there a year from now. Those are your opportunities, could be your opportunities for expansion. Likewise, if you've got distributors or agents that are bringing in a lot of revenue for you, and yet they don't look viable, that's going to create a risk for your business potentially 12 months down the road if they're no longer around or active. So it's just a different use case. In this case, it's more expansive looking across the portfolio, but you could still apply it to any existing distributor, agent, and customer and get the same kind of insight. So, it's a lot of information, lots of dimensions, managing lots of complexity, but a lot to take in. So let's just a quick recap. The Viability Rating is D&B's new solution to help you manage the complexity, you better manage small businesses, and make better decisions. It's multidimensional, and it takes on an expanded view and predicts not just failure or bankruptcy, but predicts that viability or health of a business. I know we have a lot of D&BI users on the phone. Sorry? Presenter got things a little out of order. I alluded to this earlier, but let me just talk a bit about the true statistics and the behind the viability rating. Our average bad rate across the file is about 14%. So let's look across the entire U.S. file, how many businesses are likely to go out of business, bankruptcy, sale in the next 12 months? That's about 14%. With the viability rating, you can go from less than 1% at the 1 to 65% at the high end in terms of the bad rate. So there really is a great deal of discrimination, particularly as you get into the 7, 8, and 9, to dramatically increase the chance that the business that you're looking at isn't going to be around a year from now. Now, I know we have a number of D&BI customers with us today, so I wanted to quickly show you how this is going to look in D&BI. I think that if I haven't already mentioned it, SCORE will be launching, the new viability rating will be launching into our products on May the 10th. So that's a Friday, so it'll be available to you over the weekend. Let me show you the D&BI customer. It will be included on the predictive scores tab. You'll be able to look at the predictive scores, and this is what you'll see when you look for the new viability rating. You'll see it going down. So as I talked about, we've got the viability score at the top and the portfolio comparison. Underneath that, the data depth indicator, and then the company profile. There'll be links in the product to help you navigate this, remind you of many of the things I just talked about. You'll be invited to training sessions prior to the launch and after the launch so that you're familiar with how to use it. And all the material I covered today, it will be available on our internet site to get you ready. So with that, I'm able to take a few questions. We've gotten a few questions on the phone, so let me start to answer those.
Thanks, Robin. And once again, everybody, if you have a question for Robin Davies today, just enter it into the Q&A channel. And Robin, first off, can you speak a little bit to whether or not the existing D&B ratings that customers currently have will still be available in your product moving forward?
Yes, they will. So the viability rating will be in addition to the scores and ratings that we have today.
And will the viability rating be part of the D&BI module?
Initially, no, it will not. The viability rating is so new that we wanted to give customers a chance to use it manually and for all of us to really understand the use cases before we implement it in the module. It's something that we see that will probably happen in the future.
So we're talking a lot about viability and kind of looking forward to project the potential health of the business. Is there a way, Robin, that companies can improve their own data depth score as they're going through this process?
So absolutely there is. We're doing some outbound campaigns, and we'll continue to do outbound campaigns, reaching out to companies, as we always do, to increase the depth of data. We've got investments underway to gather more information on these companies. If any of you are interested in improving your own data depth score, I would encourage you to email me or either send an email response to the information we're going to send you following the webinar, and we can reach out and give you the detailed information about how to update your information with D&B and improve your own data depth score.
Great, thanks, Robin. And for the company owner that wants to get not just an entire database, but an industry comparison by SIC or NAICS, is that possible with this new score, with this new rating?
So the company profile does not include SIC at this point. And the reason it doesn't is because that just adds a level of complexity that we weren't able to efficiently manage. We are certainly able, through custom and batch work, to provide any kind of analytics or any kind of breakdown that a customer wants. And we can reach out to your D&B rep after the launch or now in preparation for the launch, and we'll work with you to make that happen.
And how does a company determine whether or not businesses are similar? Is it a breakdown by NAICS, or is there another element that we should be looking at?
So for the viability rating, how we determine whether or not companies are similar is we base it, the portfolio comparison is based on how much we know about you, what's the depth of data. So from that early diagram I showed that I see you where we have basic identity, firmographic information, name, address, telephone number, size, employer sales, based all the way up to some payment information, detailed payment information, and then payment information plus financial statements. So I described 4 levels there. That's really the way we look at it. And then in the company profile, we also added in that age, how old is the business? Because obviously we want to look at a business that's been around 5, 10 years differently than you would a 1-year-old business. And then size. Based on employees, indoor sales, how big is the business? Is this a multi-billion-dollar business? Is this a $100,000 business? And that's how we looked at the similarity of businesses.
And Robin, is there a list that necessarily defines a deep file?
So a deep file is a file our view of a deep file is a file that would have a complete financial statement, a balance statement in it, at least 3 pieces of payment information, and then name, address, telephone number, sales or employees, and then year started, what was the current year that it started. That's how we're defining it. And there's additional information beyond that that is interesting, but those are the breakdowns that we're using.
And going back to the rating itself, Robin, so an A, does that basically translate to an audited financial statement in this case?
So obviously we would always prefer to have an audited financial statement, but we also have heard the ask from many of you to have as many financials as possible. And many businesses, particularly small businesses, don't want to incur the expense of having an audited financial statement. Every statement prepared by an accountant is not necessarily audited, so it will include both audited and not audited statements, and it will tell you whether or not we know that the statement has been audited. You can use that to make your decision.
And Robin, when we're talking about business activity, what specific business activity are we confirming in this case with this score?
So we're using a combination of proprietary internal data assets as well as information like payment information, public record information, and a variety of third-party sources that we have to confirm whether or not a business is active. That's part of the analytics that we've done with all of the thousands of sources we have to understand business activity.
And Robin, is the viability score going to be available to Canadian subscribers?
So it will be available to Canadian subscribers who buy U.S. reports. So for now, we're launching it in the U.S., but I say that's for now. We've gotten a lot of positive feedback in the limited customers we've shared it with, and so we're looking at what it would take to launch this in Canada and certainly beyond.
Well, Robin, that is actually about all the time we have now. Do you have any final thoughts for us before we call it a day?
No, just thank everybody for their time this afternoon and this morning. As I said, we're excited about this. We think this brings a whole new level of insight to the marketplace, and I think there's some great opportunities to use viability rating, make better decisions. So thank you, Lee, for everything. Thanks to the audience today.
Thank you. And just a quick reminder to participants, there will be a PDF and archived version of this presentation shortly after today. We'd like to thank you all in the audience for joining today's event, as well as for all of these great questions. And once again, a special thanks to Robin Davies for sharing her insights on business viability. And be sure to join us next Tuesday, April 23rd at 1 p.m. Eastern Time for the next edition in our Informed Perspective series, How to Avoid a Total Loss on New Accounts. With that, from all of us here at D&D, have a great day.